Greetings, diners, and welcome to another edition of the Collapse Cafe here on the Doomstead Diner. Today, I'm talking with Johnny Yo. Johnny is a photographer based out of the Cleveland area, and he has done a lot of photography of architecture in his area around Detroit, across the Northeast, documenting basically uh, the collapse of various structures and the decay that is evident all around the Rust Belt of the United States right now. And I saw the first of Johnny's works that I saw was a video that he made in his exploration of the Detroit Silver Dome. And that video I have up on current article on the diner, and also numerous photographs from Johnny as well. So I found that, and I then went to his website, Architectural Afterlife, and found more of his photographs, and they're really stunning. And I wanted to talk to him, so sent him an email, and here he is. And you'll get a chance to meet him and find out more about the stuff that he shoots as well. So, Johnny, you want to tell us a little bit about how you got started in the photography business and what drew you to this particular aspect of photography and so forth?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to say one thing really before that. You said the Silver Dome was in Detroit. They actually rebuilt a stadium in downtown Detroit, but the Silver Dome was originally in Pontiac, which is like right outside of Detroit. It's like, I mean, the Detroit Lions did play there. That's like their main stadium, but it's actually technically in Pontiac, like physically. Um, I know a lot of people have like commented on that, so I just wanted to, you know, I wanted to
Okay.
make that.
Well, the distinction between Pontiac and Detroit and so forth. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's like the equivalent to like 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 my area to Cleveland. It's like right there, like right next to each other. But
mhm.
some people from out of town is like it's Cleveland, or people from out of town there, it's always Detroit or one another. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, as far as what got me started in photographing everything that I photograph right now, which is like you said, the abandonment, decay, everything like that. Um, I don't know. I was always into a lot of different type of horror movies and horror type themed video games when I was younger. I was always into exploring and finding cool stuff when I was younger. So like those two things kind of tied in. And when I was like 15, 16, there was this abandoned farmhouse that I thought looked really cool and creepy. And it just reminded me of a lot of stuff like that. And I kept asking my mom if we could go and pull into the driveway since it was on the way to my sister's, and I kept asking if we could pull into the driveway, and we she eventually let us pull into the driveway, and we took a little walk through. It was some old horse stables and stuff like that. And later on in the same property, I came to figure out there was a mansion back in the woods. There was all this other stuff. They tore it all down now, which really sucks. But yeah, that was the first place I really like explored through, and so I thought that was really cool. Um, and then it just got me really interested in like how nature would take a place over, or just how it looked creepy, how it looked almost post-apocalyptic, but in an actual just a regular setting, like life is going on completely fine outside of it, but everything is completely dead inside of it, and it's just really quiet, really calming. You can find cool views that you can't really find anywhere else. So I just thought it was pretty cool, and then I kept going and just kept doing more and more and more with it. Through a bunch of different exploring. Um, and then we started exploring heavy around Cleveland. And I started looking through the documents one day in the abandoned school, and I just started reading all the history, and then I started researching it, at home, and then I started writing little pieces and parts about the school, a couple factories. I thought the history behind them was pretty cool. Finding that like Edison and Tesla worked for one of the factories that I explored, or finding out just history behind the students' lives, or why the school was named what it was, and the old city coordinator of Cleveland, and all this other stuff. So I started writing little pieces and parts, and eventually turned it into a book. So, you know.
Oh, okay. What's the name of that book for the viewers here?
The book is called Empty Spaces. Um, I mean, well, the full name is Empty Spaces, photojournalism through the Rust Belt. But yeah, it can be found on Deeds Publishing, their website, which I have that in a link for you if you.
Well, we can come up with that,
Yeah,
come up with all those details later for
yeah,
the viewers. Certainly, living in the Cleveland area, which is basically the heart of the Rust Belt of the fascist states of America here, that it is an ideal place to pursue this type of photography, and there's certainly no lack of subjects for you to shoot.
oh yeah,
So
definitely.
with that in mind, why don't we have a look at some of the pictures that you shot and some of the areas and uh, your thoughts and the history that you know of those places. You got some you want to show us?
Yeah, yeah. Hold on one second. I'm gonna pull this up and should be up. Let me know if it's showing. Is it showing?
Yes, indeed. I see a whole bunch of pictures flashing by my screen
Okay.
right now.
Yeah,
So,
I was just scrolling back to the beginning so I could just start from the very front of everything that I have set up here. Um,
okay, and what it appears to be on my screen is that we've got a building in the process of being demolished. What is
yeah,
that building?
well, these were recently demolished fully. These were originally the Brewster Projects in Detroit, right outside of downtown. There were four different buildings. They were about I want to say 17 stories, but it might be 15. I could be a couple off, but I'm pretty sure I climbed 17, unless I'm thinking of the Lee Plaza. The Lee Plaza is 17. I think these were 15, but I mean I could count right now, but just for
Were
the
you
sake of
actually were you actually able to get inside this building and go up the stairs?
yeah, yeah, this is shot from the very tip top roof of one of the buildings. Um, they were actually housing projects, for workers in the city or just various other people. Um,
Basically,
they were
low income housing.
I'm not sure if they were low income as far as that goes. Um, I do know I think they just they moved everyone out and they moved them somewhere else. Um, and they started tearing away into these, and the demolition was going on since the first time I went to Detroit, and the first time I went to Detroit was like I don't know, beginning of 2013. um, and they were already tearing these down at that point. I mean, they were all standing the first time I saw them, but as I kept going into the city, I would see they would just keep tearing away little by little, and they finally just now got rid of all them. And the only thing you see left is the community center at the bottom. And I think they're going to try to repurpose the community center for something like there's a little community center building. I think they're
And,
going to try to use that, but
and looking at the picture closely, is that the Detroit skyline I see in the background there?
yeah, that's
Not
the
too
Detroit
distant.
skyline, and there is the General Motors building up in the top right corner.
All right,
So
okay.
you see a bunch of that stuff up there, and there's Ford Field and um, a bunch of other stuff like that. Um, we have here is the East Central Station of Buffalo, New York, which used to be used for passengers and workers that were working around the area. Um, it has an underground section to it where people would go through. Um, People would conjoin in this main room. There's stairs on either side where they would get onto the trains or get down to the bay areas to get on the trains or get off the
Are the
trains and come up through here.
are the trains actually underground in that area, or are they at ground level rail lines?
They're ground level, but there are underground tunnels, which I believe had tracks in them. It was so flooded with water when I went. that it's really hard to tell, but they are really big tunnels. So I'm thinking they were either used for some kind of maintenance or trains. Um, it was really hard to tell during the exploring of it, but I mean they're so big that I'm pretty sure they were used for the trains. Um,
The station, as it were, looks like it's been abandoned for a fairly long time there. Do you know when they stopped using it for passengers? What period that happened?
the East Central Station. I'm so horrible at remembering dates. I know I write it all down and I forget the dates. Yeah, I can't even remember the date that they stopped using it. I think it was sometime around the 80s, I want to say.
hmm Well, it would probably
Um,
conjoin with the time when most of the commuters of any type stopped using trains and started using the cars and buses much more, and so they
yeah,
probably just didn't have the traffic
it was
anymore.
actually it was actually oh my God, I'm trying to remember the date. I know I like it's on the top. It's like on the tip top of my head, and I hate when this happens. I know they started using it in the 20s, and I believe it was 1979 that they stopped using it. Um, so like right before the 80s, and the reason that I was thinking the 80s is because it was added to a the National Register of Historic Places in mid 80s. I think 84 or 85. That's why I was thinking the 80s. Yeah. So yeah, sometimes it just takes me a little bit to remember certain dates for certain things. I remember so many, like I have documented and researched so many places that it's like I have dates upon dates upon dates, and some of them stick with me, and then some of them I just like, they're on the tip of my head, and I can't
Well,
remember.
when I look at the volume of photos that you have just up on the web that are cruising around in various locations, that that you can keep any of those dates in your head is pretty astounding at this point. It's a
Yeah.
lot of material there, so
I mean,
a lot to remember, a lot of associations to make.
on my computer through like hard drives, I have probably close to 1 million pictures that I've shot. So, yeah, it's a lot. But
How big a hard drive do you have?
I have
I know the file that you sent me took a decent amount of time to download, and that was only one portfolio.
I have multiple hard
Terabyte,
drives.
gigs or something like
60
that.
terabyte hard drives stacked on top of each other. I have a lot. But yeah,
Okay,
um,
well,
I mean, I guess just over the years, like every time I go out to take pictures, I take pictures of every possible little detail. So, just
and,
make sure I don't miss anything.
probably like me, you can't get rid of anything. Even no pictures go in the wastebasket. They all got to be kept. I know I'm a
Oh yeah.
pack rat. I'm a pack rat, in all senses, and so I just never can throw out anything.
Yeah, I definitely save everything. You always want to save like all the original files because I never know like what I'm going to use, for one thing or another. Or I could go back to pictures that I took in 2008 and now that I have a lot more knowledge of how to do like all the post-processing work, um, I can process those a lot better and just crop them different ways now that I've learned a lot more about different things. So,
Right. All right. Well, let's go to the next picture. Let's see what we got next in the
all right, this
collapse
is this is the
cornucopia.
Miles Park auto body shop in East Cleveland, and it sits right behind an abandoned Masonic temple. Actually, where I took the picture from, there used to be a garage standing over here, and actually, I believe when I first took the pictures of this, I think part of the garage was still standing. Now that I think about it, that was a while ago. I don't even know where those pictures are, and that was like I don't even know 4 years ago or something that I first took the pictures here. And yeah, there was I think part of a garage standing there, but most of it was still gone. It's been, torn away for so long that all the grass has grown up here. There's actually been a tree that has grown through an original floor of the shop. So, you can just see, how much nature has just completely reclaimed this entire, auto body shop. Um, People would
Uh,
come into the shop in the front. Wait, what were you gonna say?
I was just going to say you can see that above the shop there looks like there's apartments or whatever for people to live. That's sort of an old style of building. Nobody lives where their workplace is anymore.
Yeah. There was definitely living spaces up there. There was anything from, I mean, there was a dining room up there that they had. There's a couple bedrooms. They had full living spaces up there. So not only did they, work and own the shop below, but they did also live up there. Um, so that's it's pretty weird finding places like that when it's like not only is the shop left behind, but entire life above that is all left behind. Like everything just kind of shifted out. Once the economy started going, you know, I mean it went pretty horrible in the 80s. From like 70s to 80s around Cleveland area, and it just became worse and worse and worse, and so many more things just kept becoming abandoned. And it used to be, a lively business. So it's weird to think of things like that.
And it's interesting that most of that decay actually began before you were born,
Oh
and
yeah.
now you're out there chronicling it. And for somebody of my age, uh, you know, when I saw the video that you put up of the Silver Dome, it's like, well, I remember that. I remember when the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers would play there on a Thanksgiving Day.
Here, wait. Your audio is cutting out right now.
Is it?
Yeah. I don't know
Uh,
why.
it could be my headset. Let me check.
It's like I don't know if you can hear me. I can't hear you. Is it going out? Can I see you? Uh, I can see you.
How about now? You hear me now?
I can hear audio, but I can't really understand it.
Hmm. I changed the microphone. Well, go
Oh,
ahead.
wait. There it goes. There it goes. It's back to normal now.
It's back to normal. Okay.
Yeah.
I think it probably was just your connection cutting out. My headset appears to still be operational and charged. So I switched to the computer microphone, and that's what you're hearing me through now. And
Okay.
as long as you're hearing me, I will leave it on that.
Yeah. I'm
So,
hearing you now.
all right. All right. So let's go from the auto body shop to the next of
Okay.
our
And this
photos. Oh,
is
that's a
the
nice
this is
factory.
yeah, this is the former Richmond Brothers factory in Cleveland. And they at one point they provided, they made bowlers and suit type things, a lot of men's clothing, stuff like that, fancy stuff, like just like special tailored suits, anything like that. And they made them at such a mass production rate during that time, since it was such a popular style. They were one of the top companies. They actually um, were the first company in the U.S. to provide 2-week paid vacations. Which, like, when I learn stuff like that about a place and then I see it abandoned, it makes it even weirder, because it's like they had so much money, like they were the first company to do something like that. So how does something like that fall apart, like so, like so much and so fast?
Well,
Um,
one of the things is that that
so
type of
I mean,
business.
like that, when I learn them, it's crazy. They actually transitioned though. If you were to find this company nowadays, they transitioned into a company called Hugo Boss. They conjoined with them, and Hugo Boss is still, going worldwide. So,
Well,
it's it's
the
it's
type of
it's weird
business
that.
that is, is the garment business, and garment business was one of the first types of industries that left the shores of the FS of A and went overseas because it's such a labor-intensive type of industry. All those floors in that factory were one time filled with sewing machines and ladies mostly sitting at the machines doing the sewing of the stuff, and all that type of stuff is now in low wage countries like China, Japan, and not so much Japan, China, India, Pakistan, and so forth.
Yeah, a lot of
So
stuff went to China for sure, and it's a crazy I don't know, it's a really weird um you know I don't know, industry, I guess, to go through. It's constantly changing. Styles are constantly changing. So like companies that do stuff like this company was suited for, bowlers and suits. And, with the constant changing of today's fashion and everything that people buy, like certain companies that only make suits and bowlers, they have to have that specific audience. Other companies, like in China, they'll make everything. They'll make anything from suits to t-shirts to pants, shoes, sneakers, like dress shoes, everything. So, they mass produce stuff like that for different companies, and they have a lot of different stuff like that. It's constantly changing, and I guess that might be one of the reasons why this factory just couldn't keep up. They were tailored specifically for that one thing, and with the constant changing, they just transitioned into a company who already had the market for it, and stuff like that. So
right, and then basically, I mean, I think the the reason that factories like that got abandoned here is just because that type of industry is so labor intensive, and
yeah,
you capitalism and moves to the areas where they can pay the lowest possible wages, and so
yeah,
you have the
definitely.
abandonment of that type of business here in the United States over that time period. Basically, I think started in the maybe 60s and 70s. There was a film, Norma Ray. I don't know if you've ever seen that, about the labor movement,
No,
and
I've not seen that.
that's a really interesting movie. I think Sally Field actually won the Academy Award for performance in that, Norma
I
Ray.
should definitely check it out. Sounds
Yeah,
interesting. Sounds
yeah,
like it would
it's
be
a
pretty cool.
very good movie, and has a fabulous scene at the end, near the end, which I won't tell you about it. So ruin the movie for you, but
I'll
it's
definitely have to look
very
it
good
up.
film, very good film. Norma Ray. Okay, do we
I'll
have
have to,
any? Do we?
I'll have to get it from you in an email so I remember to look it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll send you. It might even be available on. It's old enough where it might even be available on YouTube to watch for free. Um, there's a few
Hopefully,
movies out there
that'd be cool.
I've been able to find of that type. Uh, at any rate, do we got any more pictures? Oh, there's another one.
Yeah. Yeah, I have, let's see, I have at least 15 or so more through here. Some of them I'm not going to be talking about a ton. Like this one, it was just simply to show the inside of the Richmond Brothers factory. Like this is the outside, and then I have an inside shot.
Oh,
So,
okay.
just something like that to show, there was a sunset coming in, and it was a shot that I was, specifically fond of, I guess, and just showed the inside and outside of a couple of these places. So.
Who's the person I see standing in the doorway or whatever?
Oh, that's one of my friends that we go, exploring a lot of places. Um, usually like in certain areas like that, like you don't really want to go alone exploring places. It can get pretty dangerous, especially around like East Cleveland area and of course East Detroit. So we'll either go as a couple people or go in a group. Um, so
Well,
certain things like
well,
that. But
that aspect of it, the safety aspect, is definitely
yeah, and then
something to consider.
And then
Uh,
like, if you were to fall down or like, a floor were to collapse or something and you don't have anybody around, that's not going to be really good. If you have someone around, they could at least call,
mhm.
911 or, whatever.
Yeah, I imagine most of these structures are condemned in one way or another, and so uh,
Yeah.
you're definitely taking a risk when you go inside them.
Yeah. I mean like
Uh,
this specific place is pretty intact. I mean like there was a couple fires here, but I don't even think we got to the places where there was fire. I didn't see any fire damage in any of the spots that we were at. I mean, the place is so massive. Like what you see here is only like one small section of this factory. The factory is huge. Um, so we wandered around for a couple of hours and still didn't even see the whole thing with all the floors and everything. Um, this picture is a shot climbing the front tower of the American Motors Corporation. This is in Detroit.
Okay,
Um,
so American Motors, they came from the Nash and Hudson Company, and were around there in through the 70s, I think, before that company went out of biz. Or I think they were swallowed up by Chrysler, actually.
they might have been. I
I'm
think
pretty
so.
sure of that. I'm pretty sure of that.
I think they might have been. Um, Basically, this was one of the corporate headquarters for the American Motors Company, and right here where I took the picture is 120 feet up in the very top of the front tower. Um, which I mean, if you I don't have any images on here, but if you Google, American Motors Detroit, you will see the tower, you will see the building. They had anything in this building from, their main corporate offices, like, the office rooms, to anything where, they would build or work on cars or motors or, you know, anything like that. I'm not sure specifically what they worked on in this specific building, but they had rooms that definitely looked like they would work on a lot of big things like that.
Do you
Um,
know what purpose that tower was used for?
Honestly, the tower, I have no idea. It has this big, I don't know, there's just this big section in it, I guess. I guess you could call it. I guess it might have been a maintenance type thing, a coal burner. Um, I'm not even exactly sure what the tower was all used for. I know, I think it,
Towers usually indicate radio or some type of
I
something
mean,
like that. But American Motors isn't a broadcasting company.
no, and like what I think is, and I can't remember completely, but I know when we explored it, we did come into a main section, and I think that was the front section of the tower, where there was some stairs that went up and about and around. Um, I think that was the entrance area at the base of the tower, but I could be completely wrong. Um, it was one of those ones where I've been to this building once. I thought it was a really huge and cool place, seeing how how much an entire industry like that could just go under, and now it's just filled with scrappers, looters, anything like that. Um,
Not too much left to loot.
no, I mean like there was a lot of stuff when I first went there. This was in 2013, and now even since then, just so many people have just completely gutted and tore the building apart. It's crazy. Um,
Amazing they can still find anything that's worth looting.
oh yeah. Um, this image right here is actually looking up a cooling tower of the Industrial Rayon Corporation, and this was located in Painesville, Ohio. Um, the Industrial Rayon Corporation, this specific location, they had an output of about, I want to say, I think it was 2 million pounds of rayon per day. Um, and they provided a lot of stuff for World War II, pretty much everything for World War II, as far as anything that included rayon, going into the war. And then after the war, had calmed down and everything started shifting, the need for everything they made was it just kind of dropped more and more and more, and eventually shutting the factory down. So this factory just sits there completely abandoned, and everything is just being taken over by nature. The birds have made a habitat in there. I mean, there's this giant factory room where there's just hundreds and hundreds of birds that fly around daily.
Hmm.
I actually have a video of that on YouTube where it's kind of like the perfect mixture. It shows you exactly how animals and nature will take over and just create something into their habitat. That something that we made.
Well, it's nice that there are still birds around to do that. Sometimes we concern ourselves on the diner with whether the birds and the bees and so continue to find habitats that they can turn into their own over as time goes by. Here, we do have the issue of honeybee colony death that we talk about sometimes. So that interplay between man and nature and how it goes is a big part of the collapse dynamic we talk about in the diner all the time.
Oh yeah,
So,
I always picture like after we're gone, like I always try to imagine just what everything's gonna be like after, just a lack of humans. Because even just given like this specific place, 40, 50 years and nature and animals have completely already taken over, and not even the fact that like, I mean, there is half of this factory that was it's still in use. This entire, well, it's less than half the factory. I would say maybe a third of the uh, yeah, like a third of the factory, is in use. They use it as, something else over on the other side. But there's about two-thirds of the place that's just completely unused and it's just been abandoned since, war times.
well,
Well, after
well,
the war.
yeah, often there's a balance, a difficulty between whether to demolish something and build something entirely new, or whether to try to refurbish something that's old and decayed. You have that choice as a civilization moves along, uh, but once neither happens, once the old stuff is not refurbished, nor is it demolished. I think, and I wrote an article about this, I think that's really a signature of collapse when you start to see all of the abandoned and decaying structures that nobody bothers or can afford to, in most cases, I think, do the demolition. I think that's the case in Detroit, really, although they are starting to demolish some stuff. But
Yeah.
they're so broke over there they can't even afford to knock it down.
Yeah, I mean that's how it is here in Cleveland. I mean, we've started knocking a lot of stuff down, but I mean, it's just, the economy is up and down and up and down, and it's like you never really know like what's going to happen from one day to the next. Um, Both areas have really nice downtown areas, as far as Cleveland and Detroit go. Like if you
Mm.
go to the west side of Cleveland or the west side of Detroit, go to the downtown areas, you can find some really amazing places, but people don't really see that like, when they're from out of town because everyone thinks that everything is going to be like the east side. Um, a lot of people from out of town don't have the whole concept of east side to west side like we do out here. Like, you ask somebody out here, like, hey, want to go to the west side of Cleveland? And someone will be like, yeah, let's go out and have fun in the west side of Cleveland because there's anything from, really cool bowling alleys and amazing architecture, really cool bars and fun places to go to, things like that, in the downtown area. Um, a lot of cool events for Christmas and holidays, other things like that. And you have the same thing in downtown Detroit area. You have like the MGM Grand, which is like one of the nicest casinos around. You have a lot of really cool stuff like that. So like, there's certain aspects of it which are still moving, but who knows what's going to happen over, I guess, a period of time.
Right.
Um,
It appears to be a kind of a shrinkage, and a consolidation to certain areas. So within cities like Detroit, there's still, that little core of still operational stuff, and everything is maintained. And then you have an entire city like New York City, where so much money is flowing in from Wall Street that a lot of the city has been almost completely rebuilt. I know in my era when I was living on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and I was at Columbia, the that whole area had been mostly slums around there, going down the Upper West Side. But through the 70s and 80s, those buildings and those apartments were all gutted and rebuilt and essentially started to be sold to upper income people. And we had the effect of gentrification of those neighborhoods over time.
yeah.
Uh,
Well,
that
so
one, so it all depends on the economics of a given area
so you
as
said you said you
what's
lived in
going on.
you said you lived in Manhattan. You've seen the islands off of Manhattan then, right? Like
Uh,
the abandoned islands.
well, no, I actually never took. I mean, I took a trip to a few islands, Liberty Island, statue where the Statue of Liberty is, and Staten Island, of course,
Oh,
which is where there's
because of
lots of suburban development that went on, and essentially got a lot of it got level. I think when Sandy rolled through. And I think they're still suffering from that, but no, I can't say that I ever went to any of the tinier islands or so forth.
oh yeah, I
I
mean
did
there's
go. You know where I did go in my youth when I was really young was Ward's Island, which is where there was a asylum, psychiatric asylum, because I had an uncle who was schizophrenic. He was diagnosed schizophrenic in his late teens, and he was incarcerated there, I think, from about the age of 17 or 18 until his early 40s or so, when they uh, started taking the people out of those places and putting them in group homes and that sort of thing instead of the big institutions.
yeah.
And then he finished his life in one of these small group homes in Queens. But that's the only other island I was ever on around
Oh
there.
yeah, there's a few islands over there that look pretty cool. I mean, I've never been to them, but I want to go, so hopefully make it.
There's definitely a lot of stuff that you could probably photograph around New York, especially again in the wake of Sandy. If you go down to the southern beach area of Coney Island and so forth, a lot of that got pretty wrecked,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
and I don't think has really been entirely rebuilt even today. So,
Yeah, definitely. Um,
so what's this picture now?
so furthering on with the pictures, this picture is actually a hospital that's pretty much been untouched since the, mid 60s to 70s. It is known as Brownsville General Hospital. My friend's mom actually, her sister, well, not no, not her sister, her friend or her friend's sister. I can't remember. I have a video of it. I interviewed her about it, but I can't remember the exact. I think it was just her friend. Actually stayed in this hospital, and she would visit her friend and go and talk to the doctors. It was pretty cool talking to somebody who'd actually had part in this hospital, but it was in such a small town. Like, they kept saying that there was like this demand and this need for a general hospital. They were saying, we need a hospital because they kept putting all their patients on a boat, at this point, and they would put them on this boat and take them over to where the hospital at the time was. So they couldn't keep doing that, with the amount of people that kept building up and getting sick. So they, said that there was need for a general hospital, and they eventually built one. But after like population shifts and stuff like that, and being that, how it is now, it's such a quiet little place. There's not many people around. So, you see that, and it's like, that's why the hospital eventually just started losing more and more patients. They built a new one not far off from it, but I don't think it was as big or as like, you know, as wild as this one was. This one was like really, intricate on, how they would treat people, how many beds, how much equipment there was, everything like that. Um, this was a shot taken in the community room actually, where they would go if there was an outbreak, or anything like of this, like certain diseases or certain sicknesses that were the same, in the outbreak, and they would group everybody in one room.
Now,
Um,
where again is this one located? What's the neighborhood?
this is over in Pennsylvania, in Brownsville.
Oh, okay. So,
Um,
is that central Pennsylvania? Is it near Pittsburgh? Where around
it's
exactly?
not near Pittsburgh. Um, I believe it would be more central, but I'm pretty horrible with stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um,
And it's
I
probably maybe it's close to the West Virginia border area. That's where a lot of abandonment and decay is taking
Pennsylvania,
place.
Pennsylvania itself just has a lot because there's been so many different population shifts around Pennsylvania. It's like, one reason or the other, it's gone abandoned.
Hmm.
Um, and this place is just crazy how it's been untouched because it's right in the middle of a neighborhood. So, I mean, nobody's going to be taking anything from it, and if you take something from it, you're going to get arrested. Like, you know, it's just it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, people are cool with like, as far as I know, people are pretty cool around there with people taking pictures and respecting the history and finding an interest in it. But I mean, if you were to go in there and cause a bunch of trouble, I mean, there's a whole surrounding neighborhood. There's a guy who lives right behind it, so I'm pretty sure you're not going to make it very far as far as
Mm.
that goes.
Well, again, when you look at the decay in places like that, it's like, what are you going to steal? I mean, there's nothing of any value in any sense
I
that
mean,
you really
people
see.
take anything. Like people would take the filing cabinet for 50 cents in scrap metal, but like people get pretty ridiculous with some things. I mean, people have taken things that cost or like that are worth $50,000 just to sell it for $50 of scrap metal. Um,
Yeah, well, again, you know, the issue is, given its location, you're going to probably use up more in gas to go and get the scrap metal and
oh yeah,
drive
and
it to
then
the scrap yard than you're going to get in the value of the scrap metal.
and they're
So
and they're
just
never gonna
just the transportation of the stuff out of there, it costs money.
and they're never even gonna make it out with it. And I mean, even if they were to try to move some of this stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if the floor fell away. I mean, the floor that I was standing on here it felt like it was gonna give away any second. So
Hmm.
like you got to walk like so carefully on this. If you were to put a lot of pressure on something, you're probably gonna fall through the floor. I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
like I said, the place has been
the
sitting.
dangers of doing urban exploration.
I mean, like I said, like the place has been sitting since like the 60s, 70s,
Hmm.
just completely untouched. Just the rain and everything else has been coming through. I mean, you can tell all around, like you can tell the wood is warping, you can tell the floors are just messed up. Um,
Right.
so yeah,
All
stuff
right.
like that. Um,
Uh, looks like it's a mall.
Yeah, this is the Randall Park Mall, which actually this Monday they're starting demolition on to completely demolish it. They've been tearing away at the inside for a while now. I was just there recently, and um, from this photo, which I took way earlier this year, I took this at like the beginning of the year. This was right before they started tearing into everything, and then I saw it recently, and they have torn so much of this stuff just completely down and
One
torn into everything.
one nice project to do, and something that's close to you like that, is if you can get there often enough, do a time lapse photography on the as it's taken apart. Go in there, once a week or something like that, and shoot the picture from the same vantage point, and
Yeah, I'm
get
not, I'm not,
get the series of pictures out of it.
yeah, I'm not sure.
You could even go to that vantage point anymore, right?
Yeah, I'm not even sure like what's gonna be going on with it or like how long they're gonna take to tear it down.
Hmm.
It depends on how big of a crew they have. I mean, it was at one point one of the largest malls in the world. Actually, it was at one point the largest mall in the world, um, or in the U.S. I think it was just the world. Now
Well, I think,
eventually,
in the beginning, malls were basically a U.S. phenomenon. There weren't, to say it was the biggest one in the U.S. probably meant the biggest in the world, just because there weren't too many malls anywhere else in the world, in
yeah.
the early days.
And I mean,
Uh,
the only one that beats it out now in size is the Mall of America. So it still remains the second largest and the largest abandoned mall, and it holds the record for the longest, like I guess what you would call it, what a catwalk or whatever you would call that goes up through the mall, like you could wheel the wheelchairs up it, whatever. Um,
mhm.
so it still holds the record for longest one of those. Um, and like we were talking earlier, like with technology and how it's just always advancing, I think that's one of the reasons that a lot of malls and stuff like that and shops they just kind of go because technology with online shopping with stuff like that, people have started, they've strayed away from malls, from shopping centers, from actually going out and doing much.
Right,
um
brick and mortar type shopping
and
has been, in large part, taken over by the online retailing business, Amazon.com and so forth. So that's part of the reason for it. But the other reason I think is just that the consumers, the consumer culture, and so forth, uh, has begun to decay itself. The people out there just as a whole don't have the money to waste on all the trinkets and gadgets and so forth, and so they're just buying the necessities and buying them as cheap as possible at places that provide them at low prices every day, like
Yeah.
Walmart. So that the malls and their relatively expensive merchandise have become uh, history. I think
Yeah.
there's big malls like this is one thing to shoot, but there's a lot of empty strip malls out there for you to shoot.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I've shot a few of them. I've shot a few abandoned malls also. I mean, there's one over by my house, Euclid Square Mall, which is still active, but it's only just people use it for churches. Like they rented spaces out to have churches. So there's no actual mall. It's just like the building, it's cold, there's like almost no power. So it's really eerie. You can go in, you can walk around. It's a public place still, but all you hear is like the echoing of church music going through the halls, which makes it even kind of creepier. Um, because like you're in this big like dark thing and you're just hearing all these people singing their hymns and stuff. So it's like, it's an eerie place. And it's crazy watching the fall of such a big thing. Like it was just so huge in the 70s and 80s. Like they were the big hangout spots. I mean, like everybody and anybody would always, be going to the mall for everything, shopping
Sure,
for a bunch of stuff, shopping during the holidays. And people still do that, but I mean, like, it was bigger, more so even then. Like, when the day that this mall opened, and if you look at this on Google Maps at the Randall Park Mall and you look at the surrounding parking lot space, that whole entire parking lot space was full, and people were parking outside of the parking lot all the way across the street. So, I mean, if you look at that, it just really puts that into perspective how many people were actually in this mall.
sure.
And
And in those years, in the 70s and 80s, I remember going to malls, and they were populated by mall rats, as as we called them. Teenagers and so forth who would just go to the mall after school to hang out. And
yeah,
that was a popular hangout place. That's where you
I
went to
mean,
pick
it
up
was
pick up
dude,
girls and that sort of thing.
even in the 90s, but I mean, like, um, it's just, I mean, it's crazy how things change. Um, I mean, like, if you,
Culture moves on, and those uh, you know disappears essentially, and that's what we're really talking about here is the disappearance of certain aspects of what we remember or what once was, and how it just seems to dissolve into time. But the
yeah,
physical remains are there, like the physical remains of a body are still there after you die. Your
yeah,
soul is gone, but your physical remains are still there
and that's
until the
that's
worms get them anyway.
and that's one thing that I like about about photographing these places because like I'm keeping these for historical documentation. Like people 100 years from now, they wouldn't have known these places, like some of these places even existed if it wouldn't be for some of these pictures now. Like that's why I'm hoping to keep them in kind of documentation,
Well, I
for
would
that purpose.
advise that you get a lot of them done in hard copy because I don't think my personal opinion is 100 years from now we won't have functioning electronics that you'll be able to view such things on screens.
Well,
If
that's
you
exact.
don't
Well, that's
you don't
that's
actually
the
have the physical hard copy of the picture on photographic paper, it's probably never going to
well,
be seen
Well,
again.
that's exactly part of the reason why I've like written my first book, and I'm working on a second book, and I'll be working on book after that.
Mm.
Keeping those, as far as books go. I mean, we see that books are never going to go away. I don't think. Books are just one thing that's always going to stay around. Um, they're a good, they're a good physical. piece of, documentation or anything as far as that goes.
Well, they'll
Um,
certainly last a lot longer than a lot of the high technology that we have. I think you can say that for sure.
yeah,
Whether they'll
definitely.
be around forever, that's another question entirely. In a sense, nothing is really forever. Uh, the Earth will eventually be consumed by the sun and so forth, and it goes red giant. So everything has a lifespan. Eventually disappears. So, question is just how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
Well, so where is this one now? Let's just look
This
at a
one.
couple of more, I think, before we need to tie this up. I think we're starting to run a little long. And
All right. Yeah. Sorry. I like ramble on certain things.
oh no, that's all
But
right. It's a lot of
but here,
interesting pictures,
here, I'll try to go through these really
and I
quick.
ramble too, by the way.
I'll try to go through these really quick though, and try to be as descriptive as I can. This is the Victorine Company of East Cleveland, Ohio. They used to test Geiger counters, like Geiger meters, to
Check
basically
radiation.
meter the radiation. Um, I can't really think of a better word for it. So yeah, I guess just meter the radiation
Not
around.
very useful stuff now, given what's occurred at Fukushima.
Oh yeah, that place looks great.
I know the Soaks Geiger counter people are doing pretty well.
Um, but the reason this place closed actually was because radiation, like when they would test these, they actually, since, careless workers or careless whatever, um, they would actually, there was a lot of radiation that was sinking into the ground. And this is from stories that I've heard from everyone, all these different people, so I mean, of course, I couldn't find anything on it online, but I've heard about, I've heard it from people who've worked around the area, who've worked across from the area, who've, lived around here. So, but yeah, radiation, I guess, sunk into the ground, um, which eventually abandoned the school directly across from it because it was making children sick. It was giving, kids cancer or whatever else.
Hmm.
So everything around the area completely closed down, and now it's just a big heap of waste. All the trash, like just trash gets dumped here. I mean, people dump their people who fight dogs. They dump the bodies of the dogs here, which is pretty horrible. It's this horrible little area. I mean, like it really like lets you see, how things like in the society surrounding everything has just fallen just to like I don't know, basically complete crap. Um, with the people and the dog fighting and the garbage that's just left around and everything. And it's just this building that used to be something important, and now it's just this big empty shell. Um, this is just a shot that I liked from Detroit of one of the abandoned factories out there. Um, it was another motor company building. Um, this is one that I wanted to talk about. It's Westinghouse Electric, um, the company that Tesla and Edison both worked for. Tesla, I believe, worked for it for a year before he got out of the contract. He didn't really want to be in the first place. I guess he felt that he made a mistake of even signing that. He got out of that, as soon as he could. Edison, I think, for 2 years, and they made anything from, I mean, you could probably look in your house and find something that Westinghouse made.
Oh yeah, they're Westinghouse as a corporation. I think is still around and kicking.
Yeah,
I know when I was a kid, a friend of mine, Eric Lander, won the Westinghouse scholarship, uh, and they hand that out every year. I think they're still handing it out. Gives you a full ride to go to college anywhere of your choice, basically.
yeah.
And you can get in anywhere too if you get one lesson. So,
Yeah, and yeah, they're definitely still a huge company. I mean, they've always been a huge company, which is just why it's so crazy seeing something like this. It's an entire space that's abandoned. They filmed part of the Avengers movie here in one of the top floors. I don't know if you saw the Avengers. I know I never saw the Avengers, but someone showed
no,
me the scene.
I stopped going to movies about 10 years ago. So
Yeah,
any movie trivia that I know is pre 2000, I would
yeah,
say.
they're too
Probably about
expensive
20
now
stuff
at this
going.
point.
Yeah, well, how much does it cost to go to the movies these days? $20 or something?
Like $15 for a 3D movie and like $9 for a non 3D, I think.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and then this shot is
So,
actually just another shot of the rayon plant showing how how nature has taken over. This is the room that all the birds fly through. Over on the left hand side, you can see all the old controls that would control the voltage. In the back room, there are about 20 something generators, each of them powering 11,000 volts. So, just you can see like how much this factory actually output and how quickly it just went down after the war and after all the rayon wasn't needed in the way that it was. Um, you have stuff like this from an old asylum. Um, this was a 25 building asylum. It's a massive property. Um, the District of Columbia owned it. It was such a horrible place. There's a lot of stories about kids getting beaten here actually. Um, you know Nurses and stuff like putting out cigarettes on children and knocking their teeth out and just horrible things like this. The people who would be admitted here were to the point of being so crazy at one point they would actually take their luggage and throw it in a room when they would be admitted. They would think they'd be going on a vacation and they would take their luggage and they would throw it in a room and the luggage is all still sitting there in that same room. And it's crazy seeing all this stuff. Like everything is left behind from the dentist chairs to the church, all the pews in the church, everything. They had all the amenities that you could possibly, you know, wish for, to live your life, anything that you would need.
right, it's sort of one self-contained spot where everything could be performed, and basically
Yeah,
keep all these people, caged in that location. And I think, yeah,
yeah,
probably a prisons are like that too. It's not just the
yeah. I mean, this
asylums.
is base.
You've
This
got,
is
you know,
basically
the
a
infirmary and the dentist and all the rest of that.
I mean, as
Except
far
for
as
one
as
on
far
each
as a
side.
prison goes, I mean, this is pretty much a prison, like for people. I mean, they stopped mainly, like asylums have kind of been phased out, like in this sense of things, because it's so inhumane that they won't allow people to treat a lot of people like that anymore. Like, and especially with all the abuse that would go on in these asylums, and
Yeah,
specifically
they
this
they
one.
de they definitely transitioned a lot to more to the group homes and the smaller uh, means of housing people who are incapacitated, insane, or whatever you want to call it in one way or the other. As I said, I had an uncle who was in one of those type of asylums for many years, and then in a group home. Um, but I'm not sure that some of the abuse is entirely stopped either, though,
No,
um,
I'm sure that
because
there's many I'm sure that there's
there are
many
stories of
abuse.
the of similar types of abuse that go on in the smaller places, but it's just not quite so huge and in your face. There were some, stories and reports written back in the 70s. I remember, I think Geraldo Rivera, the reporter, actually made his fame uh, going into one of the institutions, Willowbrook, I believe was the name, an institution that was in on Long Island in New York, and documenting the horrific conditions that the people lived in those days, in those places, and that was a big impetus for getting them shut down over time.
Yeah. And
So.
like I've heard stories from people who have been in some of the places that I've photographed, some of the institutions, and it's just pretty crazy. It's like it's just wild hearing the stories. Um, and then I guess let's see, I have just like a few more. I'll just run through these. These are just like some certain pieces. This is an old armory. Um, During the war, they would use these buildings that you see in the background. They were lined up. There was about four buildings. They would use them to store weapons, and guards would guard them. They had water and fuel. That's what these tanks are all for. You can see the American flags on them. Um, yeah, I mean, like there was anything from water to fuel to whatever they would need for any of the equipment. Um, but since there's after the war, it just kind of fell apart. Also,
Yeah, I think they moved a lot of those things to bigger army bases and so forth that are maintained around the country now that you really can't get into. So
Yeah.
you've got these old abandoned ones from that era, but there's certainly plenty of new ones that are
Oh
out
yeah.
there as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, they had they had plenty of like other little things just during the war, World War II and stuff. They had all these little stations. Um,
Not to
this is
mention the internment camps for the Japanese that were
yeah, I
here
mean
in those days as well.
there was tons of stuff all over the place. And I'm sure there's tons that, still just sitting around to be found.
Yeah.
Um, this is an old water treatment plant actually just sitting right behind a park, a local park here. We found this earlier this year. It was the first time I found it, which actually surprised me because I've known the building has been there, for I don't know, 8 years now. I've, always been over there and just I took one little step through all the brush that was sitting there, and there was this giant thing sitting there. So, it really like kind of puts everything into perspective. Like, oh, I could just walk into this place that I'm always at, and if I just walk past some brush, there might be something there. And that's happened a few times to me this year, and it's pretty crazy.
Mm.
Um, this is the Pullman Yards of Atlanta, Georgia. They used to um, basically take like during a point in time they would take passengers through here on trains. There's a track that runs behind it. Um, I mean, basically the place just eventually fell apart. I wrote a little article about it on my website, but just for time's sake, I'm just gonna keep running through the last couple pictures I have through here. Um, these are a bunch of vintage streetcars, anything from Pennsylvania to I believe Maryland. Um, I think there's a couple from New York. Cleveland's original RTA line is in the front of the property. This guy, he started building up a collection of stuff. He was fixing stuff for a while, and I guess from what I've heard um, from the people on the property, he he would get stuff, and then they would say, "Oh, never mind, just we don't want it anymore," and he would just end up keeping it and purchasing more and more equipment. And I mean, there's somewhere around 70, between 70 and 80 different cars just lined up through the woods. Um, and it's a wild, like, otherworldly place. It's like you stepped into a whole nother world of just everything lost in time, like it's just sitting on the tracks.
Well, you really can, think about the possible utility for those things. You've got so many homeless people out there. Those you think those things could be refurbished and turned into
Yeah, I
some
mean,
type of dwellings. I know for a while they were taking railroad cars and making diners out of them.
yeah,
That
and
was
I
a
mean,
popular thing to do in the 50s.
some of these are so past the point of like really restoring for something like that that it would just cost so much at that point. So I
Mm,
guess there's not many people that are super interested in doing that. Um,
yeah.
you have the abandoned Pennsylvania Turnpike, which is, I believe, 17 miles long. It used to be a main turnpike, and they built that, the new one, and this one just completely stopped as far as use goes. It's just
Hmm.
so now it's just sitting
Now
there.
that is a really fascinating picture from the point of view of where the road system uh, may be headed as uh, the difficulties in acquiring gas and energy to run the cars, so forth. Eventually, I think we're going to see many roads that look just like that one all
Yeah,
over the
I
place.
mean, it's just crazy because, like, I mean, if you were to look further to the left from where I'm standing, like, you'll see a large, like, it's like a highway, and it's just crazy seeing how it's just, it's just all abandoned. Like,
Hmm.
who abandons an entire highway? Um, I
We
mean,
do.
people ride their bikes and stuff down it now. Um,
Hmm.
it's a pretty popular spot for people doing that. It's a 17-mile ride, so like a 34-mile ride all around, I guess.
Sure. And no cars, no traffic to worry about, and so forth, and
I
nature
mean,
sort of taking over again. That's
you
yeah.
can park at the bottom of it. They know people park there. There's a little dirt parking lot type thing that you can park at. And go and ride your bike. There's a lot of people who do that. So it's a pretty cool place, and we just happened to be there at the perfect time with the perfect sunset, and it was
Hmm.
pretty awesome. It was actually the same night we went and we camped at these trains. We were allowed to camp on the property, so we had a little fire set up and everything. We had all our tents and stuff, and we ended up taking a trip up here because it wasn't that far. Um, this is just the basement of the Westinghouse factory, just showing more of the decay of that factory. And then, of course, there's the stadium, um, which is probably one of the wildest places that I've ever seen. I mean, it's just crazy how 80,000, a, a stadium with 80,000 seats and more than 80,000 participants for things. I mean, one of Led Zeppelin's world record breaking concerts was here. I know there was some stuff with I believe I believe WrestleMania.
Yeah,
Um,
I looked it up on the net after seeing your video, and there were several very large concerts there. Kiss, I believe, did a big concert there
Yeah,
also.
I think Elton John also, and I know the Who, Pink Floyd, and the Rolling Stones. They all did big concerts here. And with the Led Zeppelin concert, it was one of their most famous concerts in I think '77, I want to say. Um, I ha I know I had seen well, I have a picture of it. I have a picture of the ticket sales for that concert. I think it was '77. It was one of it was the world record breaking at that point
Hmm.
in attendance for a rock concert. And yeah,
Yeah.
I just Googled it. WrestleMania 3 was the one that was there. I'm not like huge on wrestling, but I guess it
Hmm.
was a really important event for a specific reason, and I can't remember exactly what it was. And I know like someone performed a move on someone, but I don't want to say names because I know I'll probably get one of them wrong. Um,
Hmm.
oh, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant. They
Hulk
faced
Hogan and
off.
Andre the Giant. Yeah, those are the probably the two most famous names in the wrestling that wrestling genre and so forth.
Yeah.
But uh, but anyway, why don't you bring yourself back on screen here? Uh,
Okay.
let's see you again.
Let me
That's a
get out of
good
this.
one to tie up the photo montage with,
Let me get out of
and
this.
just
Okay.
let
And
everybody know uh, about your websites, where they can get your books, and
oh yeah.
so forth.
Okay.
And tell us about your fundraising. I know you're planning on taking another trip this time, going westward. You can tie us up with that.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot more than just a trip, which is like basically where the fundraising comes in. Like we're trying to raise funds to accomplish a lot of the goals that we have throughout the project. Basically, we've turned the trip into a project, basically an art project, something similar, I guess, to like what the Grateful Dead did with music, but we're going to do it with photos and art and stuff like that. Um, they shared human compassion, human interaction, stuff like that through music. We're going to do it through a lot of pictures and art, and of course there's going to be music and stuff because we're both musicians. We both write a lot of stuff and play a lot of stuff. But a lot of it's going to be video and photo documented. We're going to try to help people out along the road, buying people groceries when they need it, if they really need help. Helping people who are down on their luck for a certain day, inviting some random people out to a dinner or something, just making someone's day, doing something cool like that. Hosting art projects throughout the entire trip. The trip is actually called Ohio to Oregon. Basically, well, okay, I still say Oregon. It's Oregon. They pronounce it Oregon on the West Coast, and so I need to start getting that right. But that'll be the main trip.
Well, it's like pronouncing Johnny Yo, right?
Yeah, yeah, so there's that, but I guess that's a little bit different. I mean, it doesn't look like Yo in my last name, so but yeah, they pronounce it Oregon on the West Coast, so I need to start getting that right. But basically, yeah, going from here to there, through a certain route that we have planned, which you can view on the project page, which is on GoFundMe. And I'm not sure how I could provide a link for that here. If I could pull it up on here and I could
Well, if
screen
you go to
share that.
GoFundMe and type in the what is it, Ohio to Oregon,
Yeah,
uh,
if you type it if you type
type
in
that in. That in their search box, I would imagine that comes up. Right?
yeah, if you go to GoFundMe and search, I'm pretty sure you have to search from Ohio to Oregon. So like it's not just Ohio to Oregon, it's from Ohio to Oregon, and I keep saying Oregon, I know, but from Ohio to
Don't
Oregon.
worry about it. I don't think the Oregonians will be too upset.
But yeah, there's gonna be a lot of art shows and showings and stuff like that provided throughout the entire thing. We have these VIP type packages, I guess you could call them. That was the best name we could come up with, where you can grab a few different size prints, a poster, calendar, shirt, stickers and magnets, and all this other cool stuff in this big package to help not only in support of the project, but also you get a bunch of cool stuff to show your support of the project and get cool prints and stuff. So it would basically be like if you were buying a print from me, but you get even more stuff in this package. And if you do purchase one and then we are able to meet up on the road through any of the towns that we go through, you will receive a free print, a free 16 by 20 print, and one of the people out of the group of people that orders the package, there will be one person that wins a free copy of my book. So that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool little package. It helps in support of the project. Anything possible, even just sharing the project, anything helps. So that's
Well,
we're aiming
hopefully,
to make it one of the just something unlike anything that anybody has done. We'll be documenting all the nature, all the abandoned stuff, all the different cool stuff people can go to, places that people can go eat, like mom and pop type restaurants, anything. It'll be
well,
a pretty large documentary in the end.
yeah, hopefully, some of the diners will be able to contribute to that effort, and since we have people sprinkled all over the country, all over the globe, really, then maybe some of them will be able to meet up with you guys in your trip as it goes.
Yeah, that would be
Uh,
awesome. We're looking to meet as many people as possible. So anybody who'd want to meet up, it would be awesome.
all right, well,
And
uh,
then I guess I also wanted to mention my book where it can be found. If you were to go to Google and type in empty spaces with my name, or even just empty spaces Deeds Publishing, which is Deeds, Deeds Publishing, you can find it on their website. So that can all be
all
found.
right, yeah, that book is Empty Spaces, and today we have been talking with Johnny Yo, a photographer who is chronicling many of our decaying architectural structures around the country. And we will be featuring Johnny's photos on the diner periodically. I will certainly incorporate them in some of the articles that I write as time goes by. And there's one of those up right now, as a matter of fact. And probably put this video there too. Uh, and hopefully we'll talk to Johnny again too in the future. Johnny,
Definitely.
thanks again for coming.
All right. Well, thank
And
you.
and that's all the doom. This time until next time, here on the Doomstead Diner. See you later, diners.